Alright, this is the first video of reassembling the frame. The best way to start off is always to start with the magazine release. We'll take the magazine catch right here, put it in there. You got to hold it in with your hand. Well, it slipped out. Get a wadded up paper towel or something similar to that. Set the frame of the gun right on it. That'll help hold the magazine catch up tight. And we're going to take the spring that we removed during disassembly. That goes in first. Then you've got the plunger. Plunger goes in right there. And again, being very careful not to slip, we're going to depress that plunger on that spring all the way down so we can put the catch nut on. It gets threaded onto the end of the magazine catch. So here you got to be careful not to accidentally slip and let this this plunger go flying. So I like to take the catch nut, put it in my fingers, and get ready to cover the area where that plunger is. So in case I do slip, the catch nut in my fingers in the left hand will stop it. So all you got to do is just get it started. And you can see here I've got it started. I'm going to screw it on, probably 4 or 5 turns. Go ahead and release the plunger and then turn it one more time and you'll hear a snap, and the plunger has now snapped into a recessed groove in the magazine catch nut. So we're done there. The next step is going to be on the drawbar, the trigger, and then the trigger return spring. On the drawbar, there's a dimple right there. You can clearly see the dimple and the nipple on the trigger spring fit together like that when inserted in the gun. It's a little difficult to see inside the frame, so I'm showing this outside to show you how that goes. And then the trigger is going to slide up under the drawbar just like so, and that's the only way it can fit. That has to be done very carefully when you're inserting the drawbar. So in just a second, excuse me, I'm going to start that. The first thing that goes in is the trigger, and it only goes in one way. It just slides in from the front just like so. Just drop it in, you pull it down until it's very loose down here in the bottom. It's not going to fall out. And then the next thing is we put in the trigger return spring. I don't know if you can see in there too well, but just push it forward as far as we can inside the hole that it came out of. And then the trigger drawbar slides in from the back underneath here, just as so. You can see it passing through the magazine well area. And you just got to make sure that that dimple on that drawbar picks up that nipple on the trigger return spring. And then this is one of these things where you wish you had another hand, but we'll take a finger. I know it's going to be hard to see in the video what I'm doing, but you'll take a finger, reach inside, pull that drawbar up towards the front of the gun while you're at the same time getting that trigger to slide up to where it needs to be. You can see perhaps a little bit there, but the trigger is now in place where it belongs normally in the gun. Then we're going to take the gun and flip it over. Got to be careful on this drawbar so it doesn't go flying. And we're going to line up the hole on the trigger so that we can reinsert our trigger pin. And we'll just tap that into place while at the same time I'm holding the pressure on. I'm taking the pressure off the gun by holding this drawbar into place. And just like that, that's done. Now the drawbar is captured. The trigger is in perfect position. It's right where it belongs. The spring is in the correct place up against the drawbar. And we're ready to go on now to assembling the back side of the frame here with the side plate assembly. And then you have the hammer, the safety, the firing pin release, the decocking powell, the ejector, the sear. You've got a disconnector. You've got a couple of springs here. So the first thing we're going to do is start on the side of the gun that's furthest away from you. In this case on me it's this one. The firing pin safety release lever goes in first. But first we got to put these two springs in these two holes here. Just push those in flat. First item is the firing pin release lever. That goes in, and I want to take the brass punch that I've been using. This happens to be about the same diameter as the diameter of the side plate pin. So I'm going to take that brass punch and stick it in that hole from the other side of the gun to catch the firing pin safety lever. So let me get that lined up. Normally it doesn't take this much work, so we've got that now. While I'm holding down with this finger, hold that spring tension down, then back the brass punch up just a bit so you've got enough room now to drop the hammer in. And then we'll move the brass punch a little bit further. The next item, actually I forgot, let me back up here. We need to put the decocking powel in next. So actually on this gun there's a decocking lever also that needs to go in at the same time. And let me see if I can get this to line up rather quickly here. I got that captured. Now I've got those two levers captured. Now the hammer goes in next. And there's going to be room for it. It just has to find the right home here. Then drive the brass punch through the hammer. Now I've captured the hammer. And of course the ejector is last. And we just get it into position. Then drive the brass punch all the way through. So now I'm holding all these pieces together with the brass punch. Make sure it doesn't slip out. If I were to accidentally pull it out, I'd lose my levers. Then there's also the disconnect right here that has to be installed. And a lot of times you can take that disconnect and go ahead and install it first before you put the hammer and then these other levers in. But if I on this particular gun, I like to do it last. The orientation for it is the hook here always points to the hammer or the rear of the gun, and it's going to slide all the way home right there. I know you can maybe not see what's going on, but it needs to then go underneath the drawbar. So the drawbar sits on top of it, and the disconnector sits in the recess in the hammer. Once you see where it goes, there's no mistaking what you have to do to make it fit. But remember, it goes underneath the drawbar, or in this case the gun is upside down. It goes, if you're holding the gun right side up, it goes on top of the drawbar. But I think you get the idea there. So now we're going to flip the gun over, making sure we keep the brass punch installed without slipping. And now we're getting ready to put the sear in, and then the side plate assembly. And along with the side plate assembly is the pin that holds the sear in place. Now the sear on this gun is going to go behind this black spring right here. This spring provides tension against the sear and returns it at the end of the trigger stroke. So this sear is going to go behind it. The orientation for the sear is always this way. The hooks point to the hammer or to the rear of the gun, and of course this lobe right here that I'm pointing to, this lobe is what goes on the inside of that black flat spring. So it's going to drop in only one way. It's hard to mess this up, but you got to make sure the hammer is all the way forward, as if the gun has just been fired. Drop the sear in there, bring it into the magazine well. You can see and hear how I've grabbed it. And now I'm going to place it against that black flat spring, while at the same time I'm holding the entire gun down on the table with the brass punch installed so I don't lose those pieces, this becomes quite a balancing act. Now I'm going to take my other hand and I'm reaching in through the magazine well and applying pressure on that sear while at the same time lining up that hole right here where the sear gets captured with the pin. Now right now, as you can see, I've got that hole lined up pretty good, so I'm going to come in from the back side with another punch that happens to be about the same size as the pin that ultimately holds it, and I'm going to try to get that lined up good enough to where I'll be ready to install the side plate assembly. So there. So both those punches are in place. They're holding everything together. And now we're just going to take the side plate assembly right here, and we're going to just insert it into the holes and push out the brass punch and the other punch. So I've got thumb pressure here, while at the same time I'm not letting these brass punches go flying. I want to do it evenly. So real carefully, a little bit of wiggling normally gets it in there. So there, the frame is now installed, except for, of course, the grip. So it's just a balancing act in order to get all the pieces to hold together correctly, but once you've done it 2 or 3 times, it should be pretty easy to do it on any situation with just minimal tools. The other guns that are a little bit different that Smith & Wesson has is going to be the double action only series guns, or the SIG style decocking guns. Those guns do not have a decocking powell up here. This lever that is most closest to the hammer, that lever does not exist on those guns. And also the disconnector, that hook-shaped piece that I installed right here after everything was put together, that piece actually would have to be installed before you even attempt to install the drawbar and reattach the trigger group here, because there is not enough clearance to slip it past the drawbar hook. So as long as you do that first on the double action only guns or the SIG style decocker guns, as long as you do that first, it's going to be retained by the drawbar. It won't fall out. There's not enough room for it to fall out. So, but on the regular Walther style safety guns, you can install that after the drawbar and trigger group is installed, which is what we did on this gun. And the last thing I need to do is put the grip back on the gun. The way we do that is obviously you put the hammer spring on first along with this cup, and then just take the grip, and I start right here on the frame. Just get it started and then spread it out a little bit there with the fingers, and then when you're driving it home, you just want to make sure that the side plate is pushed in all the way nice and tight so it's out of the way. The grip should slide up over that, and while we're still making sure that the cup is inside the grip frame area where it belongs, we'll just take the grip, push it all the way up like this, and then you can see I need to tighten that up a little more where the grip pin is going to go. And we always want to make sure right here, this is the most common error in disassembly. If you can see right here, you see where the grip is sticking out about a 32nd of an inch or so away from the metal frame. It looks as though the grip is in position, the trigger works, nothing seems to be wrong. However, that grip needs to be driven all the way home. So I'm going to squeeze it and you'll see it pop into place. There. So there, now that grip is on. It's not going to fall off even without the grip pin. Of course, the grip pin, we'll just pound it into place. And we are done.